have some breaking news out of the Supreme Court that we want to get to. So in the last half hour, we received several new decisions from the justices. Several of them dealt with prisoner rights. Here to break down things for us is CBS News legal reporter Katrina Kaufman. So, Katrina, explain some of the decisions that we got today.
Kelly, we got a few decisions that were related to criminal law, but the one that I want to highlight is a case called Pitchford. And essentially, it's about the right to have a race-neutral jury. This case was brought by a man who was on death row in Mississippi. It's related to a robbery that occurred where someone was killed, and he was ultimately convicted of capital murder and put on death row. But what the defense said during the trial, though, was that the prosecution got rid of 4 black jurors, and they believed it was for racial reasons. And that's something that's not allowed, Kelly. It's under a case called Batson. It has to be race neutral when you strike jurors during jury selection, which is such an important process when it comes to a trial. So essentially what the Supreme Court has decided here is that the defense should have been given an opportunity to rebut those race-neutral reasons. And basically that means that there is a possibility that there were racial reasons those jurors were taken off the jury. Ultimately, that final jury that convicted this man had 1 black juror and 11 white jurors. So it's an important decision here related to jury selection.
So remind us, Katrina, what other rulings are we waiting on?
So, Vlad, some of the big rulings that we're waiting on is whether or not President Trump can remove Lisa Cook from the Federal Reserve. That is going to be a very consequential decision. Also, whether Rebecca Slaughter can be removed from the board of the FTC. This has a lot of consequences for the independence of multi-member agencies, which are supposed to be bipartisan. So both of those are really about the executive branch's power over these boards, whether the president can actually remove their members. We're also waiting for a case related to whether transgender women and girls can play in women's sports. And then, of course, the big monumental decision that we are waiting for is the birthright citizenship case.
Yeah, those are going to be really, really interesting. I'm personally watching the one with Lisa Cook because that's going to most impact whether
100%.
He is able to remove Powell as he's staying on the Federal Reserve Board. But just switching gears a little bit, Katrina, earlier this week an Alabama court threw out the state's redistricting map. Republicans are now taking it to the Supreme Court. What can you tell us there?
Kelly, this is a case that has been in long-term litigation. It has gone up to the Supreme Court multiple times, and essentially what happened this week is the lower court said that Republicans cannot use a map they want to use that has only 1 black minority majority district, that the state has to stick with a map that has 2 of those districts. Basically, Republicans want to go back to a map from 2023 as opposed to using a newer map that was created. So this is all being reassessed in light of that recent Louisiana versus Calais decision. But what the lower court in Alabama said, Kelly, is that they believe that 2023 map has intentional racial discrimination. So they say even under this new narrower standard that the Supreme Court has established in Louisiana versus Calais, that this is just a map that cannot be used because there was real racial discrimination here, and that violates the 14th Amendment of the Constitution. This will be very important, though, to see how the Supreme Court assesses it now that we have this new standard that they set with Calais.
All right, Katrina, thank you so much for keeping us updated on all of that breaking news and what we have to look forward to.